Hello, and thank you for tuning in to our weekly blockchain gaming news roundup with blockchaingamer.biz. Today is Friday, the 26th of April, and this week we have seen quite a lot of funding news announced. So starting off with Infinite Gods has raised 8 million, particularly aimed towards kind of a push for the Web3 mobile gaming. As they've seen with the release of King of Destiny. They've also got some browser-based games, but I think that sort of focus now is mobile gaming. We've also seen Web3 infrastructure, L2, how do you say this?
Teveria,
okay, raising 5 million. Puffverse announced that they are migrating from BNB to Ronin. Currently, they've got their NFT characters on BNB. They'll now all go to Ronin, as will all of their forthcoming games, starting with the game Puffco. They also announced they raised 3 million in support of kind of that move and launching their new games. We also had Anichess, which is... how did they describe it? Like a chess game with a bit of magic. As from Animoca Brands. It's a co-development with Animoca Brands and the kind of online chess platform community, chess.com, and the Norwegian five-time world chess champion, Magnus Carlsen. They announced a funding round of 1.8 million, in addition to their previous round of 1.5 million was last year. Although, saying that, the investment activity is actually still down from 2023. And I guess in 2023, at this stage, it hadn't sort of, the effects of sort of the bear market hadn't quite kicked in, perhaps. And that's why it was still, no, you don't quite agree?
No, I don't agree, actually. No, I sort of, because I look at this sort of stuff a lot, I actually maybe I think, I mean, the problem is we compare back to sort of 2022. Actually, the sort of the peak times for funding were Q4 2021 and sort of the first half of 2022. So those were, I'm looking at the data now. Those were times where we had like, at least sort of $1 billion, some months $1 billion being invested. There's some very big funding rounds sort of being announced. And it wasn't just from VCs; it was like what they call private equity companies. These much bigger sort of funds who suddenly, were sticking, money into, SoRare and OpenSea and Forte, never heard of ever again, and some game developers as well. So there was these really big rounds going in. But the more I look at it, the more I think that those. Because I think there has been a little bit, and certainly for me, there's been a little bit of a view that we're going to get back to those. Maybe not quite at that level, but we're going to sort of get back in the bull market this time around. We'll get back to sort of bull market type investments. But I think we need to actually say those sort of late Q4 2021 and first half of 2022 were just very odd times in crypto, because we went through a sort of bull market there, and also in terms of like very low interest rates and what was going on in the sort of the world economy, the macro economy as well. So I think probably we should see those as really, obviously they happened, but they were outliers. We're not going to get back there again. Those were very peculiar times. So it's still the case, you're right, it's still the case that 2024 is not tracking higher than 2023 at the moment, either in terms of the total amounts being invested or the number of investments. But I think actually the more, I think that's sort of the levels we're at now is sort of like the normal level. So I'm looking... so March we had $169 million invested. April so far $61 million. February $76 million. I just kind of think that's probably where we're going to be. We may occasionally get some bigger deals for specific companies, but we're not going to have this sort of general sector investment like we had before. And partly you could argue a lot of the investment. One of the reasons we're not doing it is a lot of those investments haven't planned out very well. So at one point OpenSea was valued at $13 billion. Now it's probably struggling for $1 billion. So a lot of people invested money at these crazy valuations in the hope that crypto was going to take over the world. Blockchain gaming, we love it, but even in that case, as we'll probably discuss, there's only really a handful of games that you could say are scaling and are profitable now, maybe profitable in the future, but. The reason people invest, they like investing in new tech, 'cause that's cool, and you seem like, I'm investing in AI or blockchain or whatever. But fundamentally you have to return money to your LPs. So it doesn't, in a sense, it doesn't really matter what you're investing in. The end goal is you want to 10x your investment, and blockchain hasn't done that at the moment. So that's the reason that these investments are now also fairly small. You're seeing a lot of people, a lot of company. That the rounds are quite, I call them busy. So you may have some. I mean, the busiest one I saw was someone raised $4 million for their blockchain game, and they, in part of the public announcement, they had 37 different entities. So that's investors,
record,
angels, blah blah blah. So they raised $4 million, but 37 different individuals and companies and funds put that money in. So clearly no one was putting very much in. So you have that sort of situation as well, which is people are sort of buying tokens.
And how would that compare to not Web3 in general, and kind of not seen in the context of the sort of boom in 2021, but in gaming in general, the gaming industry, because that's obviously also struggling sort of a bit, but in terms of investments into gaming and the kind of the return to investors there.
No, I mean very very similar actually. If you sort of just look at gaming as a whole and include sort of blockchain in there, it's sort of the same. If you just look at non-blockchain gaming, investments were sort of very busy, sort of a bit earlier than sort of 2021, but throughout that sort of low interest rate time, loads of investments going into games. It seemed like mobile free to play was doing really well. The big console games were doing really well. PC games, indie games were doing really well. That's all post-COVID. That's all sort of come off, and now you're seeing obviously lots of game companies shutting down or getting rid of 30%, 50% of their staff, finding it very, very hard to raise even fairly small amounts of money to build their project. So it's the funding sort of squeeze is sort of everywhere in gaming at least. So gaming in general is, as you say, is going through quite an uncertain time at the moment.
Right. Good. Let's move on then. South Korean shooter Xociety from NDUS Interactive. Yep. What they call? South Korean. So that is they announced that they're coming to Sui. They currently got the NFTs on Ethereum, and now they've partnered up with Mysten Labs to go on Sui, and that's good news for Sui. I think that game is something we kept our eyes on for a while. It looks like a good game. But also last week, obviously, Sui announced that they had this what's that called? The Gamma Interactive Macht, like another shooter, a first-person shooter coming to its ecosystem. So definitely sort of a push there from Sui's side, from Mysten Labs, kind of to gain games. So what can you tell us, John? You've been looking quite a lot at the Xociety about that game.
Yeah, I mean, in general, as you sort of say, it's interesting for these blockchains that came out of Facebook. So Sui and Aptos were both sort of later generation blockchains, obviously from the sort of Ethereum EVM type blockchains. Pretty well funded from VCs that haven't really made much dent in the market. Certainly gaming really struggled. Gaming activities all really around EVM ecosystem, what we call the Ethereum virtual machine. Of course, mainly on L2s now, scaling sort of solutions using Ethereum. So it's been quite weird that even though they have potentially quite a lot of money, Sui and Aptos haven't really signed up any games. And in fact, Aptos had a fairly big South Korean RPG that got canned. So they had a sort of they had one sort of game people were vaguely interested in, and then they got canned. So it's not to say there's no games on there, but I think when you are a blockchain that's starting out, you sort of need some sort of signature. You just need maybe one or two. I don't think you need dozens and dozens of not so good games. I think, but one or two that you can sort of really be sort of hang the flag on. They can be your poster children, whatever metaphor you want to use. So yes, Society. I sort of looked at that quite a lot. Sort of know the guys quite well, and they're sort of very experienced team. They've all been experienced in the sort of the South Korean gaming market. So NCSoft, Nexon, all the usual sort of big publishers you have there. It is it's an Unreal shooter, and I've actually played one of the demos. I don't think it's doing anything particularly new in terms of sort of RPG shooters. It's got a very distinctive art style, which I think it doesn't really matter whether you like it or not, but it sort of stands out. The tech's really good, as I say. So you have sort of PvE, so that's lots of people fighting in an environment, or you have PvP, the usual sort of shooter thing, in smaller environments. All works really well. I'd say they've got a few thousand NFTs out on Ethereum. I just checking the price on the back of the SUI announcement. The sort of prices not quite doubled, but certainly gone up. So that's good news for them. So yeah, I just kind of think, and I think also for projects like Xociety, that if they stayed on sort of Ethereum, or they obviously could have announced whatever they're going to Treasure, or they're going to whatever one of these L2s. I'm sure there was I'm sure they spoke to Ronin and Immutable, all the usual suspects. But I think those sort of games can get a little bit lost. So there's so many thousands, there's so many hundreds of games on Immutable, to take an example. That's sort of like, if you go to Immutable, okay, hopefully it's going to be a good, vibrant platform, but you don't really stand out there. There's a bunch of other shooters there, and obviously you're not one of Immutable's sort of Guild of Guardians type internal game. So you sort of struggle to get profile, I think. Whereas, the one advantage of going to a SUI is they're really going to, or hopefully they're really going to devote love and marketing money on you, because you basically you're their game, and they need to show this game is great and successful, and that will encourage other games coming. So I think it's quite a good win-win, I would say, for both those projects. So the Xociety token is going to come out in the summer, and the game's going to go into early access through the Epic Games Store in Q4. So still a bit of a way off, but I think it's I'm quite looking forward to playing it. I mean, I'm not great at shooter games, as we all know, but I hope that will be good.
And obviously, there's thousands of blockchain games out there at the moment, and quite a few hundred on Immutable, as you say. But it would seem as though its most kind of anticipated titles at the moment, quite a lot of those are actually shooters, like high quality shooters. What's that fit with blockchain? Is there a good fit, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, with everything, there's different ways, obviously, of doing it. So I thought this was a terrible idea, but there were people who were doing like pay to kill sort of models, where you basically, every time you shot someone in a game, you sort of got a reward sort of thing. So basically, everyone pays into the prize pool to play in this competitive environment, and then the person who gets the most kills, gets the most money. I mean, that's sort of great for a certain group of people, but obviously most certainly not for me. That's not so good. So the one interesting thing about Xociety is actually their tagline is "No free lunch," which is sort of quite interesting. And so the shooting bit is just like there's no blockchain. You don't get rewards per se for doing well in that, but they have quite a detailed customization system. So they spend quite a lot of time on their avatars, which are quite high grade. And then you have all this customization sort of stuff going on in the background, and they have quite a detailed sort of gearing system. And so they call it like an MMORPG. So it's you spend a lot of time leveling up and customizing and gearing up your character for the shooter game. But the sort of and Korean gaming tends to be more around this sort of RPG sort of element. So I guess that it would stand out from shooters from that point of view. It's not like a tactical shooter. It's not like a super it's like a shrapnel, which is very focused on exact movement in a space and sort of one shot kills. This is much more of the sort of thing that I would like. I'm not going to be very good at it, but I just run around randomly firing at people.
Shrapnel is
yeah. No, but when you get into shooters, it's very specific. There's very specific subgenres in there, and they appeal to different people, and they have different sort of the wideness of their market is very different, I think. But I think from that point of view, Xociety is it's a fairly pick up and play. You go in there and you run around and you sort of have fun, and you can customize your character. So.
Good. Right, and as we're talking about Immutable, the next sort of news that we had was that they've launched their platform-wide reward system. What's it called? It's called the Main Quest.
Yes.
Which it's sort of leading up to the launches of those games that are launching on the ZK EVM mainnet. So that like I said, there's 15 million worth of rewards in there. And the games that have been sort of announced for the first wave, they are Blast Royale, Hunters on Chain, and Illuvium, Metalcore, and a couple of others. So you're looking forward to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a sort of, a good selection of the selection of games they've got obviously are the ones that are that we sort of knew were sort of in the first wave of going on the new EVM infrastructure, and they are sort of tend to be the better games, and sort of this is it sort of makes sense. This is sort of what everyone's doing in terms of community engagement, whatever, or whatever. We just see all these sort of quests and collect points and blah blah blah. In this case, you collect gems. We're not quite sure how the gems convert to whatever. It seems like someone was saying. So they've quoted this $50 million of value. Not quite clear what that is at the moment. It seems a lot of it's going to be in the IMX token, which obviously Immutable control. But the games that are part of this main quest can also give prizes in their own tokens or NFTs. So I mean I guess it's sort of we'll sort of see. We've had the announcement, but there's nothing sort of actually. You can go and collect one gem a day, which is maybe a little bit meaningless at the moment. But we haven't really seen how the games are actually going to be implementing this. In terms of most of them as sort of, they sort of have bits of it are sort of live. So like Metalcore is in a closed beta. Guild of Guardians, which is Immutable's really big launch next month, is going to be going live sort of next month. So that's got a bit of 3 weeks to go. And some of the other ones are not really live yet. So my fear is you sort of in the early stages at least end up doing this sort of like follow us on Twitter, retweet everything, say we're great, and you sort of earn this point system, and it ends up just sort of being a shilling social media sort of shilling competition, which we sort of okay, that's sort of what everyone's doing, but it's not. I don't think that builds community, and I don't think it's very engaging for people, and it just messes up everyone's Twitter feeds. So I hope there's not too much of that. I'm sure there will be some of it, but I guess it's sort of a question of actually getting these games live in some form, and then people playing them.
No, exactly. And even you might say they go a step further, and if you get an Immutable passport, or like we've seen with other platforms, you sign up and get a member's account. But equally, just because you get an account or a wallet with these services, it really does not guarantee that you're going to go back and play the games unless the games are any good. And we've seen quite a few examples of that, where you go, we got 750 pre-regs or whatnot, and then actually not managing still to retain any players when the game goes live. So I think you're right there in that sense of you don't have a genuine player community until you got actually good games that people want to play there.
Yeah, and I think it's sort of it's sort of funny that you have stuff going on at the same time. Like I mean, so the good example is the Mon Protocol, which is sort of so it's the game is Pixelmon, but they've sort of spun it the other way around. So instead of the Mon being the token for Pixelmon, it's like the Mon Protocol is like for all games sort of thing, but it's launching with Pixelmon, so it's sort of like slightly the wrong way around. But it's launching on Immutable, so Pixelmon is has its own sort of promotional system, but it's also part of Immutables. And I sort of just think all these sort of communities are all about, we've got 1 million sign-ups. So I guess the question is, I think a lot of these are the same million people, same million wallets. A lot of them are bots, obviously. So I guess the thing if Immutable is, they've said they've got 500,000 sign-ups so far. But what we sort of, I guess what we need to see is, if we're onboarding people outside of the existing community, then that needs to be 2-3 million. I mean, and even that you can say, like Pixels has now 3 million lifetime unique wallets. So really, we need to get to 5 million to sort of grow the market. So I guess that's sort of the, as much as I dislike people shilling on Twitter, I mean, if it works, it works sort of thing. But I don't at the moment, I don't really see us, getting to 5 million. And I'm not really sure these engagement campaigns really engage with people, with just gamers. And obviously, there's 3 billion gamers, or 500 million sort of sort of people who would call themselves gamers. So there is quite a lot to shoot at, but I don't think that those people are not going to add their Twitter account and start shilling Robbie Ferguson. I mean, that's just not. They want to come in and play a great game. So I think I think everyone knows that. I guess at some point what we need to see is, and hopefully with in case of Immutable, with something like Guild of Guardians, which is a good, I've played the demos at least, it's a good game, and I think people who play that will go, this is it's again nothing new, but it's sort of like, oh, this is good, and maybe some of them will get into the NFT side of things and be able to start selling some NFTs or that sort of thing. So the games I think need to come more to the fore, and hopefully we'll look back in a year's time and all this sort of shilling on Twitter will just be like a slightly distasteful memory.
Well, it kind of leads us on nicely onto our discussion that we've had this week with our Mavens experts on tokens and how you build sort of long-term value using tokens rather than just sort of short-term hype and speculation. And it's sort of similar to that kind of growing your community really quickly, but actually not much substantial following there. It's a bit similar, you give away stuff for free, use your token to attract members to your community by giving away things for free. But actually what was Web3 there for to start with? It was there for sort of ownership and sort of where's that gone in the sort of current state of just getting everything for free, feeling entitled to this and that, and actually what you're building there. So do dive into our Mavens discussion. It's on our website, blockchaingamer.biz. Loads of good, insightful views and opinions from leading industry experts there. And as you were talking about Pixels, our last headline of the day, like you said, it hit 3 million all-time kind of lifetime users and 870,000 daily active user wallets. So that's not nothing. Coming up to 1 million.
No, I wouldn't necessarily say it's going under the radar because I keep banging on about it. So, but maybe I kind of feel. I do think there is a sort of shift happening that this first sort of few months of this year were sort of crypto bull and everyone going a little bit sort of crazy about ETFs and Bitcoin new highs, and then really for April we've seen quite a lot of not so much. I mean, even for Bitcoin and ETH, but also for basically every other coin and a lot of other tokens doing, actually going negative for the year to date. So I think that's taken a lot of the frothiness out of the market because it was getting a bit ridiculous. But it's still the case that lots of people are sort of like, oh, we're going to launch our token, or here's our sort of farming point system and all this sort. That seems to be still where quite a lot of the sort of DJing activity is on. But there are some games out there that have been out there for a while and are if you look at the growth of Pixels on a sort of daily active wallet thing, and again, as ever, caveats, there are bots in there. We know, everyone knows that, but it is the sort of the typical hockey stick. It sort of starts off and it's just the growth is getting faster and faster, more vertical. Obviously, that kind of stuff can't last forever, but as you say, it's 900,000 daily active unique wallets. They've announced 200,000 of those wallets are paying $10 a month in RON token to get the VIP program, which gives you various sort of in-game benefits.
You can earn pixel, can't you?
You can earn the token, and you get sort of more. You get customization options and a bigger sort of backpack and all that sort of stuff. So even just I think the growth is one thing. As a game that's continued to grow, and hopefully next thing I'll be looking for is, does it beat 1.1 million daily active unique wallets, which would make it bigger than Axie Infinity as it was on its peak day. So that's the sort of the next sort of comparison. But it, more than that, it's basically now generating $2 million in revenue a month. So again, that's in a sense that sort of crypto often doesn't seem to care about those sort of things. It cares about sort of inventing tokens with value from nothing. But this is now, you see with Pixels, we'll see how long it lasts. But it's a sort, you could imagine that if you strip the blockchain out of it, and just said, "There's these guys making a social RPG browser based game that's making $1 million a month in revenue," then yeah, they're not making $10 million. Not making they're not the biggest game in the world by a long shot. But that's a sort of a thing that investors would sort of look at and go, right, okay, how can we make that $10 million a month? That, what are you doing for marketing? How can we build it out? So I think that underlying all this other sort of stuff, I think Pixels is a long way ahead of anyone else. But maybe there are these, Pixels, maybe NFL rivals. I mean, I don't quite know sort of how much it's generating a month. Nine Chronicles. There are a few other these games that are becoming proper game businesses. That aside from the blockchain are, people are playing them, people are enjoying the experience, people are spending money to continue to play that experience, and maybe those are not the games that we sort of thought were going to be the games that blockchain was going to sort of enable to be successful. Probably in my case, those are exactly not the games I would have thought 2 years ago. But these are the games that are actually in the vanguard of the market, and all the other stuff, all the other shilling people on Twitter is, as I say, sort of irrelevant to that.
Mm-hmm. And it could even be still that the big hit is not at all like coming from a new game or a native sort of Web3 game developer, but that is that Roblox suddenly decides to go like fully on chain, not fully on chain, but that sort of thing, and suddenly because seeing the hype and craze around Roblox and how they keep on sort of expanding with new games all the time, and the kids' sort of enthusiasm around that. When you suddenly got like digital ownership in a game like that, then that's maybe the big breakthrough still that no one could have expected, sort of thing. So yeah, anything can happen, I suppose. On that note, we are going to finish off and say bye-bye, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.